How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another YouTube interview with a client of ours. This is Kate Starr, and Kate helps women heal their nervous system, so, unwire anxiety, essentially, right? So you're gonna learn how she took what she knows about that, packaged it into a high-ticket program with us, and then by month 2 inside of our community, she had a $15,000 sales month. So literally from zero, essentially, to 15 grand her second month. Now, she came into the program with some real expertise, knew how to help people, but didn't have that consistent system of how to actually attract and sell clients in a way that felt authentic to her and was very consistent. So that's her story. You can always schedule a consultation with us using the link in the description if you're similar to her in any sort of a way. But whether you decide to get our help or not, these interviews are all about just showing you what it looks like to consistently grow your business with timeless and effective marketing and sales strategies. So enjoy this interview with Kate. She's gonna go in depth on exactly what her experience has been. If you're curious about our program, this is great, but it's also great if you just wanna know more about what it looks like to grow your business. So enjoy this interview. All right, Kate, welcome.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. How are you?
Of course, I'm doing really well. So man, obviously I filmed a separate intro, but why don't you tell people about kind of like yourself and your experience in the program, what you've achieved, and kind of a bit about you and the transformation you've experienced over the past couple months.
Yeah, absolutely. So I haven't been a coach for too long, and my niche is in nervous system regulation. So I'd worked with people one-on-one before when I was in my master's program for public health, but I hadn't taken it as like an online coach just yet. I've been in the program for now about 3 months, and in my second full month in the program, so just a couple weeks ago, I hit my first 15K month in revenue already. And I had really only sold like one or two packages before joining this program. So it's just been this like really quick experience for me, really awesome. I had been in a program before this one that promised these big results and like they had tons of testimonials and stuff. And I get in there and it certainly helped me with like shaping my offer. Like I could come into you guys and be like, okay, I have something I already know I want to sell and like it's put together, right? Which definitely helped. But it was all cold DMing. And
Mm,
so I was spending all these days counting these cold DMs, like they're either going to people's like message requests or like, and it was weirdly on my Facebook. So I had to convert my personal Facebook. It was just all this stuff.
mm,
And it was so unreliable. There was just no way to really know. Even if you're tracking the numbers, you don't know how many messages got through. People would reach out like 2 months later and be like, just saw this,
right, right.
just like completely unreliable. And so I knew I wanted a program that understood that organic is still good, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's a way to nurture and to kind of create inbound relationships without you having to really talk directly. But I was
Mm-hmm.
also really ready to get into ads, but not ads where I was going to be dropping without knowing yet, like $5,000 a month on some ad. And I have no idea how I'm going to actually convert that revenue.
Right, right. So when you came in, it was like, okay, sort of established with like how you're gonna help people, but not a very conveyor belt process of here's how I get that person out of the ether to talk to me and then convert it into a meeting and then enroll. Like that was basically what we brought to the table for you.
Oh my God, totally new to me, right? Like I've
Cool.
always been told that I was somebody who would be good in sales just because I'm outgoing. And I will say when I first started this, I had no idea. I mean, I would get on these calls, not normally a nervous person. I'd be so
But
nervous.
super nervous. Yeah.
Yeah, so nervous. I would talk
Yeah.
most of the call, right? I wouldn't actually listen to what they're saying.
Yeah.
And, and I was so not confident in what I was offering. And I do
Mm.
think some of that comes with time. But obviously, in my case, having been in your program for just about 3 months, doesn't take that much time if you really have a process behind you where you feel like, oh, I really know how to explain this thing well to people. And I also really know what we talk a lot about in CB is like, let the prospect share what's going on with them. Let
Yeah.
themselves kind of find their way into why they want to work with you. And
Mm-hmm.
I loved that approach because
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to be this person that felt salesy or that was creeping into your DMs like, hey, saw you follow this account. Like, you should get on a call with me, right? I wanted people who genuinely wanted to learn about what I had to offer so that it was
Yeah.
this process.
Got it. Yeah, that's cool. It's a very common theme amongst like the skill transfer that we're able to establish in our program of like, okay, this is how you run a good consultation. Because it's amazing to me how many people think that in order to make a lot of money as a coach, you just have to be a good coach. That's like
Yeah.
not it. Like that's like I had another interview with one of our clients, Hamza. He's the alcoholism recovery coach. And I kind of said this on that, but I'll say it here. It's like
Cool.
Taylor Swift has this cool quote. She's like, music business is not like about music. It's like all the
Right.
stuff people don't see. It's like the meetings and the marketing strategy and the people that you bring into the business and like all like it's like there's like little moments like 15% of the time where it's about music. Same with this. It's like probably 15-20% of the time it's about actually coaching people. But the rest of the time, it's marketing and sales and numbers and learning skills of how to, have those consultations and all that stuff. And so
Yep.
that's where I think we found a really interesting pocket. Is just like, okay, like I feel like I intuitively knew that coming into like online business, but a lot of people, they really like we see a lot of people that are like in these like coaching certifying programs, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like become a certified coach and stuff. We have so many clients where it's
Mm,
like they're certified, but they're broke. You know what I
totally.
mean? So
Yeah,
it's
because
like that's our pocket.
right,
Yeah.
exactly. And like look at all the coaches who are like not good coaches who are making bank, right? And I'm
Yes.
not saying that's good. We should not model
Yeah.
off that. Everyone should
Yeah.
be
But
coaches
it says
and
something, doesn't it? Yeah.
it does
Yeah.
because you know, I've I've noticed what's really helped me in my own process is how well my clients do in my program. Like nervous
Hmm.
system regulation has a lot of different moving pieces. There's a lot of science, there's a lot of process, there's a lot of new research coming out, right? So it's really exciting for me to see how quickly those transformations can happen when
Hmm.
people are in the right tools and techniques, which is,
Yep.
what you guys do for us too.
There you go.
But even aside from that, right? I could have those great results. I can have testimonials on my page, which I do, and I can send people that way. And you would be surprised how few really care. Like they almost just want to see that I have a testimonial, so I'm not like a bot.
Yeah.
And then they don't even watch them, right? Like if
Yeah.
they don't feel like on the call, you gave them a reason that they should really work with you. It doesn't matter how much of this like hype and buzz and whatever you create around yourself.
A
You need the
100%.
skills to bring somebody
Yes.
into your world.
Yes. It's the ability, like the number one skill that I was able to develop that led to, we've now got a multiple seven-figure business, aim to be an
Right.
eight-figure business. The number one thing, Kate, is
Yeah.
that 45-minute, how do you talk to that person? How do you run that thing? Like, and do it in a way where, again, and I say this all the time, you're not making any promises you can't keep. That's a big
Mhm.
one. You're not pretending to be something you're not. That's another one. And you're not cornering them to make a decision that you're not really sure is what they need. Like how do you walk that line while still create a conversion? And if you can get good at that, I mean, yeah, that's where you have people like yourself where, and I think a lot of our audiences, a lot of the people who watch these videos are this way, where they do have that, like I kind of know how I can help people, but they've just never experienced the power of like, man, I really have a good like process for how I like run my meetings now. Because it's
Mhm.
it's one of a few things. It's either when you're getting into sales, especially if you have your own offer, it's usually one of a few things. It's either you're just barging in and you're just giving a bunch of information, which isn't going to
Yeah.
work. The other
Right.
one is you just let them take up a bunch of space on the call and they're just basically leading it and you're just answering questions, which also isn't going to work.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Or the other one is usually just this kind of like, if I'm just nice enough, maybe they'll buy. You kind of a
Yeah.
thing. You know what I mean? Like just to
Yeah.
make a connection, maybe they'll buy. Like none of that works, you know? So yeah, it's the most satisfying thing when I can give somebody like yourself, Kate, who like you can really help people. Like now you've got that skill. It's super satisfying because it's like now you get it. You know what I mean? Like now you can go out there, you can do it. And whether it's still Instagram or it's another system down the line or whatever, you get
Yeah.
that human component of like, if I have somebody who wants to regulate their nervous system, fix their anxiety and however you would word that, like out 25 to 30% of the time, I can get them to buy the thing. It's very like clockwork and you're not like burning a bunch of calories doing it. It's very just like, this is how I do it. It's awesome. Yeah.
Totally. I found that the biggest thing that, I've noticed and my boyfriend's noticed too, because he lives with me. And like in the beginning, I was just like control, control, control. And like every time that, a sale wouldn't go through, it was this like failure of me. And I had to do a lot of like my own inner work. We talk all the
Yep.
time about mindset and stuff like that. But it was also just like every month I was like, am I going to make any money? And I mean, granted, I've been in your program for 3 months, so this saga didn't last very long, but like
Yeah.
there was
Yeah.
really this like fear around it that was
Yeah.
driving my business.
Yeah.
And I've talked about this a lot, but for me, the shift of even having a month where this month I'm traveling a lot and just things have kind of been a little more all over in my personal life, there's no concern. that like
Yeah.
I'm going to have clients coming in and I'm going to have money coming in and I'm not going to be overspending on ads without a really good percentage of that, converting into just pure profit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's just like the way that I wanted to be a business owner, which was
Awesome.
just this cruisy. I love my coaching and I have a process and I can actually focus on just implementing that and know that the returns will come instead of like if I freak out in my mind about it enough or I have enough anxiety around it, I'll figure it out or it might happen or it might not. So now I
Yeah.
don't really worry on a day to day. And I think
Good.
that's like the best thing you can give a coach who's full time, who's starting out is like not panicking and just truly being like, oh, if I just do these things, things will work out.
Yeah, how does that feel like if you can really sit in that for a second? Because
Yeah.
you came into this program, like you're really good at what you do. Like you had that. Like we didn't really give you that. But you came into this program not consistent as far as I'm aware with like sales process. It didn't feel it was, and now here you are just 3 months in, and now it's like a conveyor belt. And you've got that security of like,
Yeah.
I know that I can make money with this whenever I want and I can scale it. Like, how does that feel? Really, and when you really just sit in that.
Oh my God, it's like incredible. I I think this is always so funny when you talk to people and you're like, are you money driven? Are you mission driven? And it's like I've always been both, right? But if
Mm-hmm.
I had to scale one a little above the other, I'd actually probably go more mission. Like I
Mm-hmm.
used to work in an INGO nonprofit space, right? And I was making a
Mm-hmm.
horrible salary, but I was miserable on that horrible salary, even though I cared about the work, right? There has to be a balance. We're all,
Mm-hmm.
and for me, it's this ability to share a part of my own story and my own experience through what I'm coaching.
Mm-hmm.
See these like incredible wins from my clients every day that just feel like, oh, I'm having a bad day and I jump on a call and I'm like revived. That's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're really just talking about the way that it impacts your day to day, I mean, there's not this guilt or heaviness about, oh, I need to reschedule a meeting. Something came up. Whereas in the past, it used to be like, if I lose that meeting, I might lose someone and like I've
Yeah.
destroyed it or whatever. There's not this like attack on self or fear that comes with somebody else rescheduling a meeting. They
Mm,
will circle back if it's right. And I will take my steps to try and keep them in my world. Right.
mm,
So if I really sit in it, it gives me this honestly, this is going to sound like intense, but it gives me this ease of knowing that everything in my life will come together okay,
mm.
because all that this is doing is setting up financial goals that fund dreams and realities I've had for my
Yep.
life going forward.
So now
So
your
it's,
financial goals are just math. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, like my financial goals are met, probably exceeded to where I expected to be this quickly, right?
Yeah.
Definitely exceeded from where I expected to be. I was like, I'll give
Good.
myself a year to try and get to 10K, and like
Yeah.
to well exceeded.
Yeah.
And knowing that that means there's no longer this gap between where I really wanted my life to go and where it was. And instead, I'm like, oh, I see the bridge that connects these two because it wasn't
Mm-hmm.
a reality before. There was no way for me to look at this life that I really want and things that I want
Mm.
where I was going financially with the work I was doing before.
It's awesome. Yeah, I love even in my own business, it's like, okay, let's say I have like a number in mind that I want to have like in the bank or a number that I want to even like let's just say there's a number that I want my team to be able to make. Because like I have the
Yeah,
goal in my company of like everybody on the team makes at least 6 figures a year. Like, and if
right,
you're on the team, you're not making 6 figures, unless you're part-time. Like bookkeeper can be like part-time. I mean,
right.
like unless you're part-time, if you're full-time, you're making 6 figures. And if you're not making 6 figures, I either have the wrong person in the wrong seat, or you're not skillful enough, or I haven't built the business in a way that you can get there. Right. But it's
Yeah,
just like math of like, all right, that's this many consults, this many sales, or this many clients you work with. Like a coach, if you're working with Jose Antonio, I've got the same goal for him, and he's actually on track to doing it, which is awesome. And
nice.
so, it's just becomes math. And I think a lot of people they've got this relationship with money in particular, where
Mhm.
money has never been a spreadsheet of just like, this is what I've got to do. Like, if I want to have 50 grand in the bank or 100 grand in the bank, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
That's no longer like how on earth. It's more like, well, that's just this many consults, which is just this much on ads and this much time in the DM, and
Yeah.
that's this many sales. And it's just, and so to me, I think that's something also that was very intuitive to me for whatever reason. That when I started to meet other people, they were like, that was like gold to them, right? But it's
Yeah.
always been that way where it's just like, yeah, I mean, $1 million, it's like, this is what we got to do, like in the span of 5, 6, 7 months, or however long it would take for us to create that. You know what I mean? It's
Totally.
just like it's just math, right?
Yeah.
So that's really cool. It's cool to hear that because the key thing that I think I saw you develop, and you made this post in the CV too about like being like driven by like some things, or maybe that you weren't the best, but you had a good month, right?
Yeah.
I think the
Yeah.
key thing that you're starting to realize is like, okay, as long as I just know my numbers and I don't allow myself to unlearn how to ride a bike in some sense, like with the sales stuff, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Then I'm good to go. You know,
Totally.
that's really cool to me. That's really cool. So talk more
Yeah.
about like maybe for existing clients in the community,
Sure.
particularly like what is working well, because we really hung on the sales thing. What's really
Yeah.
working for you? Talk a bit more about like what you gained and why you think success came like 2 months in. I think a part of it is like, you came in with some preloaded expertise and stuff, maybe a little bit of confidence from that. But like maybe just talk a bit more about like what's really worked for you, sales thing included, but anything else as well.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll kind of talk based on things that have come to mind.
Yeah.
First thing that comes to mind, right, is immediately when I jumped in the community, like once I got off my call with Carlos and like paid my deposit or my fee or whatever, I was like in the community like that night, looking at people's posts, like messaging people I wanted to meet with, like asking, I've actually made so many good friends through this community, and we all have each other's numbers and we all give each other advice and
Nice.
check in on each other. So I would say that's like an easy one where if nothing else, connect with people because they're going to give you stuff and you're going to give them stuff and it's awesome. But I think in terms of my personal growth, one thing that I know because I so much of my time on social was taken up from that other course on cold DMing every day. So every day I felt like I didn't even want to look at my phone because I did
Mm,
not want that work.
mm,
And we had to post a reel a day, except we got a break on Sundays. So I
mm,
was in this like miserable, just like so much effort onto social, organic.
mm-hmm,
And I had like 300 followers that I had slowly built over like 6 months or something like that, you
mm,
know? Um, so I took some time to better understand how to make my organic content go further. And we've talked about this. But combined with taking out the need to post just to post and to start to post things that felt true to me. So, like
mm.
my captions on my Instagram page, I treat almost like my journal. Like, if I'm
Yeah.
feeling something or I want to get a point across, like, I have all these different little like qualms and things that I believe and ways that I look at the nervous system and healing
Mm,
that uniquely mine and may
mm-hmm.
ruffle some feathers. I get tons of angry men on my page all the time, and that's fine.
Fair enough.
All right.
Yeah.
But it started to become something that was like an artistic process for me. And that
Mm,
like today I had a really busy day, so I didn't post and I didn't feel this
mm.
like looming thing about having to post at a certain time.
Right.
Since being in CB, with the combination of ads coming in and shifting the way that I was nurturing to truly my voice and bringing out ideas that mattered to me, not just trying to fit a template of like all these other sales and coaches I saw on Instagram, I now have over 30,000 followers in three
Nice.
months,
Let's
right?
go.
So that's been awesome. On a more kind of back end level, I guess. There's a couple things that I've done that would be helpful, I think, for the community. I wasn't using my stories at all. So I've
Mm.
used stories as an opportunity to say, hey, like slots are filling up fast. I am,
Yep.
in
That's
the
huge.
process of building out like group and a hybrid group online program where I'll be able to take like infinite people. But right now, I actually really can only take a certain number of clients per month
Mm, mm,
because of the one-on-one nature. So
mm-hmm,
finding opportunities to communicate that, slots were filling up, that, I even at one point had like free sessions, which were really just run the same way as my normal discovery calls, but seemed like this great offer, just kind of playing around with and testing your audience to see what they respond to.
mm.
Um, and then I guess setting and in the DMs, right?
Yep.
This one was so hard for me to learn. One, like
It's a big one for a lot of people. It's that
yeah,
human stuff, right? Like the content,
yeah,
like you're not talking to people. So there's
right.
some about, no, not some about, it's obvious. It's people. So all of a sudden there's like stakes involved, right? It's hard to be just like, I have total room to fail. I can totally fib this conversation. I just dropped my pen. I can totally
Yeah,
fib this conversation and it's like not a big deal. I
right.
think a lot of people they're like, I gotta nail it. You know what I mean? It's like if you could just get rid of that and just be like, we talk about that mindset model, like taking
Yeah.
ridiculous action, having curiosity and humility about like the approach and not needing it to work any ever. You never need it to work. You're just curious and humble of like what you're learning. It's like then yeah, that's a huge like setting sales. It's so cool you say that because there really are patterns in the stars at this point for me. And it's just like not to interrupt you, I really want to hear you finish your thought, but I'm starting to see like it's just so how do I guide people to realize like it really doesn't matter how much you care about people. I know that sounds weird. It doesn't
No,
matter how good you are as a coach. I know it still sounds weird. It's literally just these little skills that if you just get good at them, that's when you start to make a bunch of money. And then you can bring that care and you can bring that passion and you can bring
yep.
that stuff. You know what I mean? Um, but some people I think hear that and it doesn't feel aligned with them. So I'm in this stage now with our marketing. I'm trying to figure out how to communicate that without like scaring people away. You know what I mean? Where it's like, I literally don't care how good you are. It doesn't even matter. That's like you have to learn this, you know. Um,
I
I don't know.
totally I totally agree
Yeah.
because I was totally like coaching in the DMs, trying to prove to people that I was legit using big fancy words, like all of that. When
Yep.
somebody just really wanted to connect and they were probably having like five other coaches in their DMs doing similar, once
Sure.
your algorithm. So like you're already in competition, right?
Yep.
And I think you're really right here that I had to shift my mindset from one of like just trying to get people to work with me to becoming that coach that shows somebody like all those other coaches who have those skills but are really bad at coaching and scam people out of money and like don't care if they get the outcome. Like I have been for so many women re-strengthening in their faith in coaching and
Mm,
being
it's epic.
uh like I'm not joining something with somebody who doesn't care and isn't going to show up. And that doesn't mean I'm
Yep.
working my phone, but like my program's really legit,
Yeah.
even though we kind of go through the same processes. So how do you set yourself apart?
Yeah.
That, yeah, you can certainly be that really good coach, but I think you're right. It starts in those initial conversations where you're not just robotic and you're not just
Yep.
following the script just to like check the boxes, but you
Yep.
actually bring yourself out a little bit more so that they don't think you're a bot. In the beginning,
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many people said, "Am I talking to a bot right now?" And it was not a bot. It was
Wow.
me,
It's
you
amazing.
know?
Well, and it's also just being able to like ask open-ended questions and let them feel like they're in charge. That's something
Yeah,
people don't even think about. It's like it's got to be their decision. If they're going to buy something, it needs to be their decision. So it's like Socratic selling in a way. You know what I mean? It's just like ask questions, let them come to the conclusion. That's why we teach you guys the golden question. Like what's stopping you from going from here to here on your own that has you maybe willing to make an investment if it's the right fit. And they'll just literally tell you, this is what I need to hear in order to be confident to buy your thing. And it's amazing. And people just like lay it all out there. And then usually for us, like only reason people don't buy is usually it's they just weren't being honest with us up until that point in the call, which is
right.
very common. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
it's like we told them, hey, we're gonna ask you some questions. They weren't actually answering them, but we thought they were.
Mhm.
Or they're gonna get started at a later date. They just gotta get the finances together. It's like
Yep.
we don't really get any like no's anymore. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I've noticed too, is which is so cool. And because your sales script is like foolproof, like if anyone was going to join this program, but you say this, but like for the sales
Yeah.
script alone, like that would be worth the cost of the program, right?
Love it.
But I I really notice now that I don't have a sales call that goes bad or feels weird. And
Mm,
every single person I speak to chooses to work with me in some capacity. I do have a mini course that I created as an affordable starting option.
mm,
And there's like a little upsell where you could do like two sessions for, whatever. So there's not a call I get off where somebody doesn't at least buy that mini course, at least maybe get the upsell, at least then decide to jump into the program, or is like, I'm saving up finances, here's a deposit, and I'll come back in a couple months,
yep.
right?
Yep.
Um, Unless, like you said, they were either a really bad fit and it wasn't really coming through in the DMs and with the setting,
Mm-hmm.
or they're not really being honest in the questions and they
Yep.
feed too much into their own
Yeah, they're just a
fears.
little defensive and they're just not like, that kind of a person that's like maybe a little more willing to share. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's epic. I love it. I mean, it's really really cool to watch you out here winning. I know that this is gonna be a strong year for you. Just excited. Like where do you see you taking this? Because now you've got a consistent sales process. You're setting calls. You're signing up clients with relative ease. You're commanding premium rates. Your clients are winning. Like where do you want to go? Like 6, 12 months from now, taking this stuff. Like where do you see yourself at that point?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I did take a plunge this month and hire a freelancer to help me with building what I have as my kind of one-on-one course because I already use some slides and have like modules, but they're taught in this kind of collaborative capacity. I find
Hmm.
that's awesome because actually the collaborative discussion helps with the neuroplasticity, right?
Yep.
But I want to have a hybrid course. So it's an online with group calls so that there's somatic experiencing and like co-regulation calls. I think community is so important with nervous system,
Yep.
plus like a set number of one-on-one sessions each person gets with me.
Yep.
So that's in the works and should be done in the next couple months. I'm
Nice.
hiring a setter in the works and I'm taking my
Nice.
time with that because we've
Yeah.
talked about it. It is so important not to just do it because I know things can feel frantic. I'd rather lose a couple sales through not responding to messages fast
100%.
and put somebody in who's not a right fit or not trained
Because
up.
they're gonna burn a bunch of leads. It's really
Totally.
dangerous. Yeah, you got to do it right. Yep.
Exactly. So even if that takes a little bit, that's fine.
Hmm.
So for me, my mindset really shifted into there are so many women who are in the dark about nervous system, and it's
Mm.
actually kind of like my duty to bring this information to them because all of these male-dominated medical fields and different fields that are actually saying, well, you should be doing this, and it's all conscious mind focus, and we know so much of it is subconscious and body-based, and it's re-triggering them, and it's making them worse, and all these horrible things that I
Yeah.
really want to bring this to as many people as possible.
It's awesome.
So in terms of financial goals, by like the end of next year, I'd certainly like to be at somewhere between like 50 to 70K months with the
Done.
program that's
Done
out,
deal.
right?
Absolutely.
But in terms of like, I don't know, bringing it to the world goals, I want to create a community where, we have well over 1,000 women all able to join on calls together, all
Awesome.
working together, all creating connections. I
That's
mean,
so
that's
sick. And you feel like
cool.
you've got the pathway to do that now.
100%. And that's
Love
one
that.
thing I was going to say. You touched on this before, but I had no concept of how somebody even makes, like I would see these numbers in my other program because they could up level you to like an ads program or something. Somebody would be like, I made like 79,000 this month. And I was like, how would you
Yeah.
even make that? Like, how does that even look? Right. And so like, I love that you have this starting program for someone like me who is making less than a full-time salary per month, right?
Yep.
If that and still brought in the information to break down how do I scale this.
Yep.
Knowing it's not as easy as like, oh, you just do it. I know that eventually there's more hiring involved and bringing people in and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I 1,000% feel confident of like, I used to think it would be a huge deal.
Weird cut because my Wi-Fi cut, but we'll keep going.
Yeah. So what I was saying was, I've never been, it's kind of like this almost gatekeeping. And at least the program I was in before, and what I've heard from coaches in other programs of like, we're only going to show you this a little bit of how to get to 10K months. And we're not going to share with you the secrets of how these people come in with like 80, 90, whatever K months, even like
Mm-hmm.
20 or 30K, which feels like impossible, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in your program, one of the first videos I watched was, okay, I know you're like here and not making any money yet, but here's how you're going to eventually get up to, 7 figures or whatever. And it felt so unfathomable. I remember my first call with Jose Antonio. He was like, so what number do you want to get to? And I was like, well, like in an ideal world, I'd get to 20K months. And he was like, no, what number do you actually really want to get to? That's when we started to talk about, well, I mean, like my dream is to get to, like 60K or whatever, but like that's
Yeah.
way too out there, right?
Yeah.
And I went from in a period of 3 months in your program, going from thinking it could be like life changing to make like 7 or 8K revenue, not even profit, right? And say
Mm-hmm.
like there for the rest of my life. And I was like, this is still better. I'm doing what I love. To like, I will be pissed at myself if I haven't made a 30K month by the end of the year. You know what I
That's so
mean? Like,
epic. I love that.
yeah, it's so cool.
So
It's so
cool.
cool.
That's
And I
so
don't feel
neat.
like sleazy for doing it at all. You really
Yeah.
create this understanding that it's not like we're harnessing money just to have money. We're doing
Mm-hmm.
it so that we can continue to put it back into the program and build it
Yeah.
better. I
Yeah.
wouldn't have the funds to build out this program to bring in 1,000 women
A
if I
hundred
wasn't
percent.
making enough money to do that and build my team and get the
Yeah.
right research and
Yeah.
everything.
One of my mentors, he was like, dude, like profit is fuel to run a machine, like it's like gas for your car that serves people. That's like all it is. And
Yeah,
that's how you last. Like not to like toot my own horn, but I've been in this for like 6 years.
right.
Like you don't do something for 6 years and not be good at it, right? And like not actually help people with what you say you can help them with, right? And so I think a part of why, because really all I've done for like 6 years, honestly, Kate, and this is like what you can do. into infinitum now is literally just that month, the extra profit takes them out to live on, takes them to have a little fun with, but the rest goes right back into the system and you just compound it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just like have some extra at the end of the month, compound it, have some extra compound it, and you solve the bottlenecks within the business. So you're gonna start, you're starting to have a setter and you're gonna start to even have like a sales rep and like a coach and do group and
Yeah.
stuff like group delivery and like you got this freelancer building that out. So it's literally as long as you have enough access profit at the end of the month to compound with, then you have like inner business problems that start to show up, but you don't like word of the wise if you're ready to take it is like don't try and preemptively solve those things. I know it feels scary to like try and like just move and just break stuff, but that's how you get to like 60 is you just
Yeah.
move and you just break stuff and you're going to have a couple unhappy clients and you're going to have a little bit of friction. But the way that you get there is you feel where those friction points are first and then you solve it. Right. So that's where people get it wrong is like build the whole thing and then they grow. I'm like, no, man, you grow and as it meets a friction point, you fix it. Grow as it meets a friction point, you fix it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just a little bit of like moving in faith, you know? Um,
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so true because I think if I had frozen to fix everything, being my like imposter syndrome, perfectionist self, like always very like straight A academic self, right? Like I wouldn't even have a program yet to be offering that's
yeah.
already not only helping people like the extent I thought it was, but
Hmm.
like way better than I thought. I was floored by
Hmm.
my results. You know what I mean? So I was
Hmm.
like, oh, and I wouldn't have even put that out there just
Yeah.
because you keep nitpicking and you really learn through going. One thing I've really noticed in the last month is like my coaching is getting way better. I'm like, oh
Nice.
man, like I really feel like I'm on this because
Hmm.
I jumped in and was uncomfortable and figured some stuff out and like probably confused some people and like didn't deliver as well as I could have and
Yep.
then adjusted that. So exact same
Yep.
thing with business, right? That and I think that circles back to exactly what we were talking about before where you can't take this stuff personally. It's like
Yeah.
numbers and data and learning and curiosity and data points.
Yes.
I help a lot of my clients with any type of, I call it limiting. I don't really like to talk about like addictive, but
Hmm.
excessive behavior that they're doing that is kind of like a limiting coping mechanism, using their phone,
Hmm.
alcohol, like, napping too much, even whatever. And I
Hmm.
always say, I don't really care if you do it, right? It's not a failure, it's a data point. But I wasn't applying that to my business. So I saw like things not working out as like personal things about me and not
Hmm.
just data to apply to do better in the future. And
Hmm.
if I can figure that out and what has felt like, I feel like I've been with you guys for like years and it's been 3 months, you know what I
This is the
mean?
same here. Yeah.
So yeah, you're in the thick of it. It feels like a lot, but you're really actually, if you're an on it enough person to start a coaching business, which pretty much everyone in our community is, if they're like jumping in here, right? And you're really
Hmm.
dedicated to it, it's not actually going to take that long to work itself out.
Yeah. It's really not. It's a lot of that fear. Like I love this idea that like what's it? I think I heard like Alex Hormozy say this, and I don't listen to a ton of anybody's stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But sometimes things just like stick.
totally.
And he said like it takes you like a year to do the thing that you were afraid of. Once you do it, it takes like an hour. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And it's
Yeah.
like I love that. That's really good. And it's very true. Like in some sense, like damaging admission, it's like all we're really doing, like not, this isn't actually what we do, but in some sense, what we do is once you pay all this money, it's like, well, now you got to go do it. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And it's like, well, now you got to do the uncomfortable thing that you've been avoiding for like 8, 9, 10 months, 2 years, 3 years, you know? It's like now you actually have to talk to people. It's like, oh, you know what I mean? Now I actually have to sell this thing and learn how to have those dialogues with people. Oh, but it's often these things people just put off and put off and put off and put off that when you just have somebody who like really cares and like gets it and can just level with you and be there alongside you, that things just start to click because you have that safety of if it doesn't work, then I know that I've got these people who care. So I'm not in this like alone. And often at the time it's that being in it alone that makes making that little leap, whatever that was for you, really scary, And so that's why we designed that into the thing. And I love that you're working with Jose Antonio because yeah, I mean he's a legend. Um, well, cool. I mean, look, like you're doing great. You're making money. You're serving clients.
Mhm.
I guess as we start to kind of wrap it up, like I don't know what would be some pieces of advice for people who like yourself, they've got expertise, right? They can really help people but they just don't know how to grow and get to the point where you're at, right?
Mhm.
what would it look like for you to advise that person? Like, what would you tell them to do?
Yeah. So, if you're not yet in a coaching program to support you with getting there, and this is so much not as it sounds like I'm like, you're like, you can make me a brand ambassador or something, but your program or somebody else's, like, get a program, but with a process that you've well vetted. Because for the
Yeah.
first program I was in, it was terrible, but I
Hmm.
didn't ask because I was just so excited by like, ooh, making money and making this work that I didn't ask like, so what process am I implementing here? You guys were
Hmm.
candid on your call. I think I joke with Carlos. I gave him every objection you have in your book, and he knew how to talk me through every single one, right? Because
Yeah.
I was so at that point afraid of again joining a bad program.
Yes, of course.
But I think the reason that that's huge is because there's so much value in learning from those who have done it before. And no
Hmm.
one really gets anywhere, at least not very quickly,
Hmm.
without learning from where somebody else who's done it before, well,
Hmm.
done it and how, right? Like
Hmm.
you've already screwed up a bunch, Trey, so that I can just like reap the benefits of that for a
Yeah,
pretty affordable rate and like not have to go through that for so many years, right? And still
totally.
screw up, right? So imagine how many more screw ups if I hadn't joined the program.
Totally.
I think also, if I can bring in like a little nervous system stuff here,
Yeah,
right?
totally. I love that.
That a lot of people who come into coaching have been fiercely independent for their lives because they've been taught they had to, have
Mm,
not been given a lot of emotional regulation skills. That's why they're so driven, ambitious, and often dysregulated. And they're
mm,
badasses. And I was one of those people, right? I was a huge success on paper and all of this stuff. And I could do a really good program and I knew I'd be a great coach.
mm,
And then it felt so shameful, like deeply shameful to say that I couldn't figure it out for myself. And
mm.
that comes from holding on to those belief systems and holding on to this protection mechanism of like hyper independence. So when
Yeah.
I joined a program like this, it was actually this gorgeous opportunity to practice like self love and undo
Mm,
beliefs that this is nothing to do with my capabilities or how good I am at figuring stuff out or how smart I am, and everything to do with now I get to take these ways that I already know I'm intelligent and that I love to serve other people and do it way faster and way sooner. I think about all the women who I've helped who I wouldn't have helped if I hadn't gotten this thing off the ground sooner, who are like doing so well now and like so happy in their lives. That's awesome, right? I would have missed
so
them if
sick.
I didn't start this for a couple of years.
That's so sick. I love that. Well, I mean, obviously, thanks for the shout, right? And people have to find the one that works for them too. I mean,
Totally.
we won't work for everybody, and that's I think why the people who we do work for, we work so well for.
Yeah.
Is we're even honest about that. Like, yeah, like, it's not for everybody. But that's really cool, Kate, and I'm just excited to watch you keep doing it. And I'm happy. I'm happy you're in the community. It's been really cool watching you win, and yeah. I mean, it's
Mhm.
always an interesting thing watching, what can come of just a couple clear, like, especially when somebody's like just like super humble, ready to receive, like, and that mindset of like, all right, like seriously, just tell me what to do, I'm gonna do it.
Mhm.
Right? That mindset. Because it's understandably so. It's hard to get somebody there. Because it's like, I'm a stranger, so I get why you have some reservations to what I'm telling you. But
Mhm.
if I can get somebody there and over again, the clients who are winning with us, they're there, then it's just like clockwork. So it's really, really fun. And I appreciate your trust and I'm happy you're here and I'm excited to watch you keep growing. So thanks for taking
Yeah.
some time and sharing your story and inspiring some people. And I really appreciate that.
My God, of course. Literally anything for this community. It's been such a gift.
Love
And
that.
yeah, it's just so cool to see how you guys have this process that truly, I really believe this now because I've seen it work for so many of our other clients, right? And for myself. And we go into that mindset when we're signing up for something that like this worked for them, but it won't work for me.
Hmm.
And it really is a process that like should actually does work for everyone. And if for some reason it's not working, then there's some way to fix it. And I
Yes.
know that whether that's your coach who you're assigned to or like you would literally get in there and be like, what is going on? Like, where do we
Yeah.
need to fix it?
Yeah.
Having that support is awesome. So like now knowing I have a foolproof process to get my business to grow and not just suddenly be at a number and not know how I got there and not know how to stay there is like such a gift.
Epic.
So yeah, I'm just so
So
happy.
awesome. So
Of
awesome. Well, I'm happy you're here. Thanks so much for your time. Awesome
course.
interview. Appreciate it a ton. I'll wrap the recording and then maybe we can hang for a sec and do
Sounds good.
whatever. Cool. All
Cool.
right. Thanks.